Somewhere in your family, there is a name that survived famine, survived ships crossing a freezing ocean, survived 100 years of people forgetting where they came from. And for most of your life, that name was just a name. But what if I told you that scientists at one of the oldest universities in Ireland took the DNA of thousands of living people, compared it against the ancient kingdoms of Ireland, and discovered something almost impossible? The old clans, the warriors and kings you thought were just legends, are still hiding inside human blood today. And there are 25 specific Irish surnames that don't just sound Irish. They are a genetic signature, a fingerprint left behind by one of the most powerful men who ever lived. If your name is on this list, your true clan was never lost. It was written into you the whole time. So stay with me, because before this video is over, you're going to hear your name, and you're going to understand exactly who you really are. Now, before we go any further, do me one small favor. If you have Irish blood, or you just love this kind of hidden history, hit that subscribe button right now, because channels like this one live and die on it, and I promise you the payoff in the next 10 minutes is worth it. Subscribe, and let's uncover your clan together. Let's start with the science, because this isn't a fairy tale. This is real, published, peer-reviewed research. In the year 2017, a team of geneticists at Trinity College Dublin published a study called the Irish DNA Atlas in the journal Scientific Reports. What they did had never been done at this scale before. They collected DNA from Irish people whose 4 grandparents were all born close together in the same part of Ireland. Then, they compared thousands of these samples against people from across Britain and Europe. And what came out of the computer stunned even the researchers. They found around 30 distinct genetic clusters, groups of people who were genetically tied to each other. And here's the part that gives you chills. When they drew those genetic clusters onto a map of Ireland, the clusters lined up almost perfectly with the ancient provinces and kingdoms of medieval Ireland. Think about what that means. The borders that Gaelic kings fought and bled over more than 1,000 years ago are still visible today, not on any map, but inside the DNA of ordinary people walking around Dublin, Donegal, Cork, and Galway. The clans were real, and they never fully disappeared. They just went underground, into the blood. And there's a deeper layer to this. The vast majority of Irish men belong to a broad genetic group called R1b, one of the highest concentrations of a single male lineage anywhere on the planet. Ireland sits on the far western edge of Europe, an island at the end of the world, and for thousands of years that isolation acted like a sealed jar. Waves of people arrived, but few left, and the bloodlines settled and deepened and stayed. That's exactly why the ancient clan structure survived in the DNA when it faded almost everywhere else. Ireland didn't just remember its clans in songs and stories. It preserved them in the genome, like insects in amber. There was one more twist in that Atlas study, and it explains a lot of family mysteries in the north of Ireland. 3 of the genetic clusters weren't purely Gaelic at all. They showed a blend of Irish and British ancestry concentrated in the north, and the researchers traced it to a specific event. The Ulster plantations of the 1600s, when the English crown settled thousands of Scottish and English families onto Irish land. So if your roots are in the north of Ireland and you carry names that feel half Scottish, that is not an accident. It's a genetic timestamp of one of the most turbulent chapters in Irish history, written right into your cells. But one clan towers over all the others. And this is where your story really begins. His name was Niall. Niall of the 9 hostages. And to understand why 25 surnames trace back to him, you have to understand who he was. Niall was a high king of Ireland somewhere around the late 4th and early 5th century. His name comes from a chilling strategy. To control his rivals, he would take hostages, one from each of the kingdoms he wanted to dominate, and hold them as human collateral. According to legend, one of the hostages he seized during a raid on Britain was a young boy who would grow up to become Saint Patrick himself. Niall ruled from Tara, the sacred seat of Irish kings, a place so holy that whoever held it was considered the master of the whole island. His descendants, called the Ui Neill, meaning the descendants of Niall, became the most powerful dynasty in all of Ireland, holding on to power for 600 years. They launched raids across the sea, striking at Roman Britain and the coast of Scotland, dragging back slaves and plunder and captives. Some say Niall himself died far from home, killed on a raid across the English Channel or in Scotland. He was, by every account, a conqueror in the rawest sense of the word, and conquest in that age meant something biological as well as political. The men who won the wars fathered the next generation. That's the brutal engine that turned one warlord into the ancestor of millions. For centuries, historians argued about whether Niall was even a real man or just a myth. And then genetics settled the debate in a way nobody expected. In 2006, that same Trinity College Dublin team published a paper with a title that says it all: A Y chromosome signature of hegemony in Gaelic Ireland. They found a specific marker on the Y chromosome, the piece of DNA passed only from father to son, generation after generation, unbroken. That marker is called RM222. And when they mapped where it appeared, the numbers were staggering. In the northwest of Ireland, the ancient heartland of the Ui Neill, 1 in 5 men carried it. 21%. Across all of Ireland, roughly 1 man in 12. It showed up strongly in western and central Scotland, and it even reached across the Atlantic, appearing in about 2% of men in New York, carried there by 3 centuries of Irish emigration. Add it all up, and researchers estimate that between 2 and 3 million men alive today descend from this single early medieval ancestor. Let that sink in. 1 man, 2 to 3 million living descendants. That puts Niall in the same rare category as Genghis Khan, one of only a handful of men in human history whose bloodline exploded across the world. And how did that happen? It comes down to Gaelic society. Power passed down through the male line in a system that kept land and titles inside a tight web of related men. And older marriage customs, allowing multiple partners and concubinage, persisted long after Christianity arrived. So a powerful king didn't just rule. He fathered an enormous number of sons, and those sons fathered more, and the bloodline snowballed down through 1,500 years, all the way to you. So here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. The 25 surnames that carry the genetic echo of Niall and the Ui Neill dynasty, according to the researchers in the DNA projects that have tracked this marker for years. Listen closely, because your name might be here. O'Neill, O'Donnell, Gallagher, O'Doherty, O'Boyle, Bradley, Cannon, Devlin, Gormley, Quinn, O'Kane, Campbell, McLaughlin, Malloy, Donnelly, McGovern, Egan, Hines, O'Rourke, O'Reilly, Flynn, McManus, McMenamin, McCall, and McKee. 25 names. And if one of them is yours, understand what that could mean? It doesn't just say you're Irish, it hints that your direct male line may reach back to the court of a high king, to the warriors who ruled the north of Ireland when Rome was still falling. And here's a beautiful detail that proves it. These surnames are still most common today in the exact northwest corner of Ireland where the Ui Neill ruled 1,000 years ago. The name and the land and the DNA all still line up. The clan is still standing where it always stood. And these aren't random sounds. Every one of these names carries a meaning, a piece of the story. O'Neill itself is thought to come from a word connected to a champion or a passionate man. Gallagher comes from a name meaning foreign helper or eager companion. Quinn traces back to O'Coin, tied to the word for wisdom and chief. Doherty comes from Dochertai, meaning descendant of the destroyer or the obstructive one, which tells you exactly what kind of reputation that clan wanted. These weren't just labels, they were declarations. In a world without written records for most people, your name announced your loyalty, your bloodline, and the network of fighting men who would come running if you were threatened. To carry one of these names was to wear your clan like armor. Now I want you to do something for me right here, in the middle of all this. If you heard your surname just now, or if a name in your family tree made you sit up, drop it in the comments below. Tell me your Irish surname and what part of Ireland your people came from. I read these, and there is nothing more powerful than watching hundreds of you discover you're connected to the same ancient clans. And if this is blowing your mind so far, smash that like button, because it genuinely helps me reach more people with Irish roots who deserve to know this. Okay, your name, in the comments. Do it now, then come right back, because Niall is not the only king hiding in Irish blood. Because here's what almost nobody in America realizes. Niall's clan was just the beginning. There were other royal dynasties, and each one left its own genetic signature. Take Brian Boru, arguably the most famous king in all of Irish history, the man who broke the power of the Vikings at the Battle of Clontarf in the year 1014. Brian came from a clan called the Dalzicaeus, the Dalcassians, out of the southwest, around Clare, Limerick, and Tipperary. And genetic genealogists identified their signature too. It's a marker called RL226, sometimes nicknamed Irish Type 3. The O'Brien DNA Project spent over 20 years and nearly 1,000 participants confirming it. And they went even further. They isolated a marker beneath it dating to around the year 900 that appears to represent Brian Boru's own personal line. And here's the goosebump fact. Fewer than 100 people alive on this entire planet are believed to carry Brian Boru's specific signature. If you're one of them, you are royalty in the most literal genetic sense. Brian Boru is a giant in Irish memory. He rose from a minor kingdom in the southwest to become the High King of all Ireland, the man who finally united the island's warring factions long enough to face the Norse head-on. At the Battle of Clontarf on Good Friday of 1014, his forces shattered the Viking grip on Ireland. Brian won the battle, but he lost his life, cut down in his tent as an old man while his army carried the day. He became a legend, the once and future king of the Irish, and for centuries afterward, families across Munster claimed his blood. The surnames tied to this Dalcassian line include O'Brien, Kennedy, Casey, Hogan, McGrath, and McNamara. And to test it, a living man with a documented 30-generation pedigree tracing all the way back to Brian Boru took the DNA test. The result: he carried the signature. The paper trail and the blood agreed across 1,000 years. Then there are the kings of Munster in the Deep South, the dynasty called the Ioganachta, whose surnames include McCarthy, O'Sullivan, O'Callaghan, O'Keefe, O'Donoghue, and Moriarty. When researchers studied the Y-DNA of men named Sullivan and other Ioganach names, the results actually supported the existence of a dynasty that historians had only known from ancient written genealogies. The DNA confirmed the annals. And then, one of the most poetic discoveries of all. Niall had a half-brother named Brian, who founded the dynasty of the West, the Connacht, the ancestors of the O'Connors, who gave Ireland its very last High King. And when scientists compared the DNA of the Ui Neill and the O'Connor line, they found they shared the same marker, RM222, with a 99% probability that they were related within the last 1,300 years. In other words, the family tree written down by medieval monks claiming these two dynasties were brothers turned out to be true. The DNA proved a genealogy that was 1,500 years old. But now, I have to tell you the part that most videos will never admit, because the truth is always more interesting than the hype. Here's the twist that separates real knowledge from clickbait. Your surname alone does not guarantee the bloodline. And here's why. In Old Ireland, when one clan conquered another clan's land, the ordinary people living there would often adopt the name of their new ruler just to show loyalty and survive. So a powerful name could spread across the countryside without a single drop of shared blood. On top of that, over the centuries, there were always children born whose father was not who the records claimed. Geneticists call these events, politely, non-paternity events, and they happen in every family line on Earth. So the honest truth is this: a famous surname opens the door to a clan. Only a DNA test can actually walk you through it. And the scientists themselves were careful. They never flatly declared that Niall was the founder of that marker. It was the newspapers that shouted it. Telling you this doesn't weaken the story. It makes you one of the few people who actually understands it. And here's another shock that most Americans have never heard. Some of the most Irish-sounding surnames in the world are secretly Viking. Take the name Doyle. It sounds as Irish as a pint of Guinness, but Doyle comes from the Old Irish Dubh Gall, meaning dark foreigner, a name the Gaelic Irish used for the invading Danish Vikings. So if your name is Doyle, your ancestors may have literally been the Northmen who raided these shores. The names O'Loughlin and Higgins come from Irish words that mean, quite simply, Viking. McManus comes from the mighty Norse royal name Magnus, meaning great. And McAuliffe means son of Olaf. These families feel completely Irish today, and they are. But their names carry the echo of longships and Norse blood folded into the Gaelic world 1,000 years ago. And this is where you can throw out that old phrase you've probably heard, the Black Irish, the idea that dark hair and dark eyes in an Irish family must come from shipwrecked Spanish sailors. The truth is far more likely to be this ancient blending of Gaelic, Norse, and Norman peoples, layered over thousands of years, that gave Ireland its incredible variety of faces. Your looks, just like your name, are a record of every people who ever set foot on that island. And it goes further. Some of Ireland's most common names aren't Gaelic or Norse at all. They're Norman French brought over after the invasion of 1169, names like Burke, Roche, Power, Fitzgerald, and Barry. And here's the delicious irony. The surname Walsh, one of the most common names in all of Ireland, actually means foreigner or Welshman. Some of the most Irish families in the world are named, literally, the foreigner. Because that is what Ireland truly is. Not one pure bloodline, but 1,000 years of Gaelic kings and Viking raiders and Norman knights all melding together into a single island story. And your name is a clue to which of those streams flows through you. One more fact that shows just how deep this runs. Ireland gave Europe some of its very first fixed, inherited surnames. The oldest recorded Irish surname is O'Clery, and it appears in the annals with the death of a lord in County Galway in the year 916. That may be the oldest hereditary surname recorded anywhere in Europe. While most of the continent was still calling people by a single name, the Irish were already carrying their clans in writing. And then, history tried to erase it. Under English rule in the 1600s, it became so dangerous and so hard to find work with an Irish name that families were pressured to drop the O and the Mac from the front of their surnames. Many never took them back. The most famous example is Murphy, the most common surname in Ireland today. Its original form was Omerchada, meaning sea warrior, but the O was stripped away and never returned. So if your name lost its O or its Mac somewhere in history, that missing prefix is a scar left by conquest, and you can put it back. So think about what your Y DNA really is. It's like a 1,000-year-old map, because clans lived together, married within their networks, and stayed rooted in the same valleys for centuries. The men you match with on a DNA test are essentially a snapshot of who your ancestors' neighbors were 1,000 years ago. Your genes can point to the exact corner of Ireland where your direct male line stood when Niall's descendants still ruled. That name you inherited, the one you maybe never thought twice about, is a thread. And if you pull it, it runs all the way back through famine ships and stone castles and burning raids and royal courts, back to a handful of men whose ambition was so vast that they populated the world. You are not a footnote in that story. You are the living end of it. Every person before you who carried your name and refused to let it die, every ancestor who crossed that ocean with almost nothing, they carried you here. And the clan they belong to is still inside you, waiting to be recognized. So here's what I want you to do now, because this is where your journey continues. If this video moved you, if it made you see your own name in a completely new light, subscribe to this channel right now, because I am uncovering the hidden history of Irish and Celtic bloodlines, one story at a time. And you do not want to miss what's coming next. Give this video a like so more people with Irish roots can find it. And most importantly, if you haven't already, go down to those comments and tell me your surname and your county. And let's find out together which ancient clan you truly belong to. Your name survived 1,000 years to reach you. The least we can do is remember what it means. I'll see you in the next one.